All right, China is fighting back against the Trump administration's tariffs on Chinese products. Beijing is planning to slap tariffs on multiple U.S. imports. The move is mirroring that trade war between the United States and China, which happened back in 2018, which could cause a ripple effect on the U.S. economy. Now, this comes almost less than 24 hours after the United States paused its tariffs that it had planned to impose on Canada and Mexico. So let's bring in CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady to break this all down for us. So let's begin first with China. It's interesting, and I think we were talking about this on CBS Mornings yesterday, that the United States had planned to put higher tariffs on our allies, Canada, Mexico, and lower tariffs on China. Meanwhile, he just rescinded, or at least he paused those tariffs on our allies. He kept the tariffs in place in China. What's going on?
Yeah, fast-moving situation. So I think what's interesting is he placed a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports. That's much less than the 60% or the 100% that he had at one point threatened, and as you said, much less than 25%. What China did in response is a little bit muted, and I really want to emphasize that. They put a 15% tariff on liquefied natural gas and coal, a 10% tariff on crude oil, farming equipment, and cars coming from the U.S. That's not a ton that they import from us, okay? They get much more of those types of products from Russia, from Indonesia. Also, the U.S. doesn't export a ton of those products to China. So it was sort of a little bit of a tariff versus what we could have done on China. And then China's response was a bit muted. Now, in terms of what you're going to see in terms of prices in the U.S., you're not going to see a full 10% increase when you go to the store and you buy a toy that came from China, because that 10% tax, import tax, is paid by the company, but it's on a wholesale price. And then they can decide if they're going to pass all of that on to you. So it's not going to see, if you buy a $100 item, a $110 price tag for you. It's going to be a little bit less. But what I find interesting, Vlad, is this was tit for tat, but it was definitely muted on both sides.
So it almost feels as if China is like, this is Sparta. Like, you're not going to threaten me. To get that reference, right?
Yes.
It's like a pop culture reference. I'm a pop culture nerd, but it almost feels as if they're like, look, go ahead and do it. We're fine. We're not going to be affected by this. If you keep coming at us, we will find more creative ways to come after the United States.
Potentially, though. The other aspect is I want to remind us all where China's economy is right now. They're not doing so great after the pandemic. They didn't have as much of a resurgence as the U.S. did. So they also want to be careful that they want to signal to the U.S. this is Sparta, but they also don't want to hurt their economy too much. And I want to note they didn't put import taxes on key rare minerals and whatnot that they need for their semiconductor industry. Remember, they want to build high-powered chips, and they don't want to hamstring them. So it was, yes, I'm signaling don't come at us, but I also don't want to hurt my economy that is in a little bit of a tough place right now.
It's really kind of fascinating when you think about it on a geopolitical level, because as we're talking about it, it sort of signals that China is calling President Trump's bluff. You can try to do this. It may look good back home. It doesn't really affect us at the levels that you expect that it will affect us. And remember, as we've been pointing out to our viewers, any tariffs that are imposed on another country are paid by the country where those goods are coming into, which would be the United States. So it'll be really interesting to see how it all sort of plays out over the next couple of weeks, and if President Trump decides to increase the level of tariffs on China. Really fascinating discussion, Kelly. Always great to have you here in the studio. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.